otros brazos, dime, en quién piensas, pero por favor no mientas, di que
Hey there folks, it's Javier Blog 208 and I'm just coming to you live with some thoughts on something totally different today. You know how I sometimes do these random videos where I just kind of talk about a totally different topic than kind of what my channel's focused on? This is one of those times. So I watched a movie recently that I haven't watched in a long time. The movie's called Holes. It's about a boy that gets sent to some camp where they dig holes and where they, apparently it's a juvenile detention facility or all that. But there was a side part of the movie that I found really interesting, and it was the story of Kissin Barlow. And I kind of wanted to talk about that and express my opinions. You know, first of all, I recommend the movie, but the whole side part of the movie could have been a whole movie on its own. So I started doing some research, and I started to look up, look at other videos on YouTube that were talking about it, and I couldn't really find a full talk video on the story of Kissin Barlow, at least from the movie, or like somebody explaining about the life and everything. So I just thought I'd be the first, Matt, so yay. So Miss Catherine, okay, so she's a teacher growing up in this Texas town by a lake, Green Lake, Texas, or something like that. She's growing up, she's living there, and she owns a schoolhouse. So she's a teacher at a schoolhouse, and she constantly teaches her students and all that. And she's this lovely lady, wonderful person, very loved, very sweet lady. And she's growing up and living in this town in Texas where there's this, there's a whole town there. Apparently the town has like a history of racism and all that, and there's this onion man who sells onions from the back of his donkey. His name is Sam. So Sam is apparently, he's this black onion man, probably about 25 to 30 years old, something like that. And so apparently, Miss Catherine and Sam, they start to talk to each other and get to know each other. Sam really tends to like Miss Catherine, and Miss Catherine tends to really like Sam. Now, let me make clear this: Miss Catherine's a white lady, and Sam's a black man. And apparently, there's this whole kind of love story going on behind those two. And Sam is a very, he's an onion man, very sweet man. He sells onions. He sells other things. He has a donkey that's almost 100 years old. Apparently, the donkey eats really healthy, and that's how the donkey is that old. She's like, "How would you know, Sam? You're not a day over 25. You're really Texas accent." Apparently, so Sam and Miss Catherine are close. So at this point, they're friends, and so Miss Catherine. Apparently one day Sam comes into Miss Catherine's schoolhouse after she dismisses her class. And she's just like, "Hey, hello, Miss Catherine. I thought you might like some onions." She's like, "Thank you." And then apparently Sam's like, she's pointing at her leaking roof because apparently it's raining, so Sam is like, "I'm good with my hands. I can fix that. If you give me 3 jars of your spiced peaches, I'll fix the roof for you." And she's like, she and Sam shake hands, like, "It's a deal." And then, so Sam fixes up her roof, and then Sam said, "I'll guarantee that roof for 5 years." And Miss Catherine's very thankful, and then and Sam's like, "If there's anything else, just let me know." And then she says, "The windows won't open. Me and the children in the schoolhouse will enjoy a breeze now and then." And then, Sam's like, "I can fix that." So Sam fixes up the windows. So Sam fixes up the windows. And by the way, Sam fixes up the windows, and then after that, I think Sam starts to help her with a bunch of projects. His famous quote is, "I can fix that." So I guess every time, Sam is working on something for Miss Catherine, and every time, she's just kind of teaching her schoolhouse, and there were those two, the white woman and the black man in a somewhat racist Texas town. They're falling in love, and they're starting to have a love story. Meanwhile, there's one guy in her class. I think she had an adult class too. His name was Trout Walker. Trout Walker was just this mimicking spoiled rich kid. She's like, "Hey, Miss Kathy, you want to take a ride on my motorboat?" He's this white guy, by the way. So this white spoiled rich kid. You want to take a ride on my motorboat? She's just like, "No, no, thank you." And she's like, "Come on now, girl. No one ever says no to Trout Walker." And she's like, "I believe I just did. I believe I just did." And then Trout Walker walks away all offended that she said no, but apparently now Trout Walker's really angry. But then the story starts to heat up. So she's having this love affair with Sam the Onion Man, this beautiful black man, and then this beautiful white woman, very sweet teacher. Apparently, they one day they kiss, and so Miss Catherine and Sam they kiss each other, and so they just start they kiss, and apparently Miss Trout Walker's outside spying on the door of the schoolhouse, and then they get seen. And next thing you know, everything's raveled up. Everything's raveled up. The whole town is just getting crazy. The whole town's just going crazy, you know. There's like the black man kissed a white woman. The black man kissed a white woman. Next thing you know, there's a whole angry mob of people on riding on horses burning down the schoolhouse. And Miss Catherine's freaking out. She's like, Sheriff, they're destroying the school. They're destroying the school. And then she walks into the sheriff's house, and the sheriff is drunk. So the sheriff is just like, the sheriff looks at Miss Catherine, she's like, "Give me a kiss." And then Miss Catherine looks at him and she's like, "You're drunk." And then the sheriff is like, "I always get drunk before I hang him." And then she knows right away, the sheriff's talking about Sam. And there was a whole thing of racism behind this, because like Sam is a black man and he's not allowed to kiss a white woman. And Miss Catherine looks at him, she says, "If you hang him, you better hang me too, because I kissed him back." And then the sheriff looks at Miss Catherine and she's like, "It ain't against the law for you to kiss him. I mean, it ain't against the law for you to kiss him, only for him to kiss you." And then she just kind of, then next thing you know, the sheriff tries to throw himself on her to give her a kiss. She pushes him away. And then she goes to try to find Sam. She's looking everywhere, and her schoolhouse is burning down and on fire. It's nighttime. There's a whole angry mob of people. And this is all because of the kiss, all because a black man kissed a white woman. There's a whole angry mob of people just attacking the schoolhouse, and she's out there. This poor teacher. She's out there looking around, looking for Sam. She finds Mary Lou dead. Mary Lou, by the way, was the donkey that was almost 100 years old. That part was really, really sad. Mary Lou was dead. All that life that donkey had, nearing 100 years, you know, only to be shot and killed. Poor animal, just minding its own business, just shot and killed. And you see that scene in the movie where the donkey's just lying on the ground. It's just so sad, you know. That donkey didn't do anything. That was Sam's donkey, by the way. So apparently she goes to the lake and she finds Sam. Sam's trying to escape. And then she sees the Trout Walker's on his boat, and Sam's on one boat in the lake, and Trout Walker's on his boat in the lake, and she knows what's about to happen. Trout Walker pulls his gun and shoots Sam while he's on his boat, and Sam dies. And Miss Catherine's like, "No!" And then and she starts to cry, "Sam! Sam!" And let's just stop and talk about that for a minute. All this was because a black man kissed a white woman. All that was because a black man kissed a white woman in this Texas town. So Miss Catherine's heartbroken. And she loved Sam, and she's heartbroken that Sam was killed. And this totally changed her life. This event, she cried and cried and cried. And this whole event just totally changed her life. So then she became the outlaw, Kissin Kate Barlow. So she went into the sheriff's office the next day, kind of dressed up in a different manner with lipstick, looking very pretty. And then she's like, "Hello, Sheriff. You still want that kiss?" And the sheriff smiles like, but then she pulls out a gun and shoots him. And then as soon as the sheriff is dead, she goes to his body and gives his body a kiss. And then she goes to ride off into the west, into the wilderness of Texas. And apparently, as the story goes, she sides with Native Americans, she sides with other blacks, she sides with other oppressed minorities. And they just go town to town to town, everywhere from Hell to Houston in Texas, they just go robbing banks and just robbing people and collecting loot and just finding rich people and just robbing them and she's the one leading this. Kissin Kate Barlow is out there leading this whole thing. They're just riding the West, and they even robbed Stanley Yelnats. You have to see the movie to know who he is. He's the Stanley Yelnats' great grandfather who was under the curse of Madame Zeroni. Stanley Yelnats, again, that's the whole point of the movie. He is the main character of the movie, but his great grandfather was the descendant of who was under the curse of Madame Zeroni for not carrying Madame Zeroni up the mountain. But anyway, Kissin Kate Barlow robs him among many others. Every time she killed a man, she kissed him, and that was her mark. So she just rode and rode and rode the West, kind of uniting with blacks and Native Americans and other oppressed minorities, and just going out there in the West and just riding with these people, robbing banks, and just sometimes every time they killed somebody, they kissed them, and she's just kind of targeting, the rich white folk that in the whole system that screwed her over, and the whole system that killed her black lover, that killed Sam. So it's a very, very sad to see what happened to her, but she went crazy apparently. Robbed banks, sided with black and natives, and just robbed banks, every Texas bank, and she became like this well-known outlaw of the West. And she never got caught. She was well wanted, but she never got caught. So it was just a whole Western film, apparently it wasn't really not so much a movie, but it was a side movie that could have been its own movie. And there's a lot of comments I'm reading. They wonder why. Why was this not made into a movie? This was a whole side note thing. So much later in life, 20 years later, she's just sitting there in the middle of the desert, after robbing all those banks, after, siding with natives and oppressed minorities and blacks and all that. She's sitting there in the middle of the desert just contemplating, hallucinating, with the hot sun beating down on her. And she's wondering, she thinks she sees a vision of Sam. And Sam, who already died all those years ago. And since then, the lake dried up because I think that God or something, probably God, brought a curse upon that town after they killed Sam. Because of the racism in that town that kind of led all this to happen. So she sees a vision of Sam, and then she's like, "It's so hot, Sam, it's so hot, Sam, but I feel so cold." And then Sam was just like, and then the vision of Sam, again, it's a hallucination. "I can fix that. Oh, Sam." And she's just touching Sam, this Western outlaw that for the last 20 years, just touching Sam and all that, just missing him. And then two people come in and they start pointing guns at her. One of them being Trout Walker, the spoiled rich guy who killed Sam ultimately years and years ago. "You got 5 seconds, tell me where the loot is." And then she looks at Trout and she's just like, and then Sam's gone all of a sudden because it was just a hallucination. And then she's like, "I've been waiting for you, Trout." And she's like, "I ain't gonna kill you." And then apparently this girl in her class married, who used to be in her schoolhouse class, she married Trout Walker. And she's like, "Where's the loot? Tell him what you want. He's a desperate man." Miss Barlow's like, "Go ahead, kill me." But the light goes on for miles and miles and miles. And then she looks, and she's like, "I've been wishing I was dead for a long time." Okay, when the Trout Walker threatened to kill her, she's just like, "Go ahead, kill me. I've been wishing I was dead for a long time." But she's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry." When Trout Walker was like, "We ain't gonna kill you, but we ain't gonna kill you. But by the time we finish with you, you're gonna wish you was dead." And she says, "I've been wishing I was dead for a long time." And then she looks at him. She's like, "You, your children, and your children's children will dig for the next 100 years, and you will never find it." And by the loot, by the way, they mean a big old treasure chest full of treasure and worth just thousands, if not millions and millions and millions of dollars. I guess, as the time went by, the value of it went up. So she sees a yellow spotted lizard, and she just said, "Come here, sweetheart." And the lizard bites her, and she's just like, "You, your children, your children's children will dig for the next 100 years, and you'll never find it." So the lizard bites her. She's like, "Start digging, Trout." and then she dies. She dies laughing. And then Trout Walker starts digging, and he digs all the way for the rest of his life. And then her granddaughter digs all the way well into her life. And then it just kind of goes on and on, you know. They were not able to find the loot all the way up till Stanley Yelnats and Zero finally dug and found it. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is it kind of just shows what created the outlaw Kissin Kate Barlow. It kind of shows what created, you know, her, you know, this Western outlaw, feared Western outlaw that was just like robbing banks and just killing people and kissing them. And it just kind of reminds you that she used to be in Speed, just a school teacher who was in love with the black man in a racist town where that was forbidden. You know, that kind of love was forbidden. And I guess her whole life, you know, she took a stand against what you call racism. I guess, you know, what she saw was racism. She kind of fought that her whole after that happened, that her Sam was killed. She kind of just fought with minorities her whole life, and it was just she became a Western outlaw, and it was just a whole interesting, crazy story, you know. You guys, for the record, you guys can look it up. There's a book. It's called Holes, and there's also a movie. Again, it's called Holes. Again, this is a little side part of the movie. Very good, very recommended, and she may be I keep reading comments saying she's one of their favorite characters in the movie, so it's just very interesting. I wonder if you guys have read it. I wonder if you guys have seen the movie. I've done both. I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and it just kind of goes to show, you know, the times they were living in back then. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, folks, and I will talk to you later.